Looking forward to 2017 and evangelical voters who turned out in big numbers to help get Donald Trump elected. Want to hear some of those promises kept. Mr. Trump also received strong backing from voters and organizations that support an individual's right to own guns. The NRA now expecting a little less resistance to its agenda. Evan Siegfried, Republican strategist, author of GOP GPS, Capri Cafaro, Democratic state senator from Ohio.
Capri gave me a much warmer state. Thank you.
I know. I was dreaming of Ohio at this very moment, of Hawaii. Now I'll go back to Ohio. You described yourself as being from ground zero of where there are Democrats who went for Trump.
Right.
Based on what we just heard of evangelicals going for Trump, was it about God and guns, or was it about the economy?
Well, I would say predominantly, my constituents and all across Ohio, but particularly in the industrial part of northeastern Ohio, which is what I represent, the economy was first and foremost. They saw Donald Trump as a problem solver, somebody that understood how the economy worked, really, focused in on his trade message about NAFTA in particular. But the gun issue was an issue as well. I mean, out of, all of the issues that you may think about, when it comes to more conservative voters, these are true Reagan Democrats in many ways, and they do care about guns. I myself, actually, as a Democrat, have been endorsed by the NRA my entire career in government. So that gives you a sense of the kind of community.
Who these constituents are.
Yeah.
Evan, to that point, where does the president, and for that matter the GOP in sort of a larger sense, where does their priorities have to lie? Because voters are going to want results, and you can kind of pick and choose which battles and hills you're willing to die on. Where does the GOP carry the torch? Where does the GOP say, we'll live and fight that another day?
Well, as Bill Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid. And what they're going to have to do in the first year is put together some tangible result where voters who even voted against Donald Trump can sit around the dinner table and say, you know what, because of this GOP policy and this President Trump policy, my bills and cost of living went down. And that's something that's very good. At the same time, you saw Donald Trump go out and speak to evangelical voters and pro-Second Amendment voters with respect. They have been looked down upon for the past 8 years by President Obama, who said they were just bitter hicks clinging to their guns, and evangelical voters were mocked as deplorable by Hillary Clinton. What Donald Trump did was say, what are your concerns and how can I help?
So Capri, to that end, how do Democrats get your voters back, the Reagan Democrats?
Right.
Because obviously, if you listen to what Evan has to say, you don't really want to die on the hill of being pro-gun control, as I'm sure you've learned by by being endorsed by the NRA. Do you die on the hill of what Supreme Court justices are going to be put in? Where do Democrats make a stand?
Well, I think the Supreme Court in particular and that appointment is incredibly important for Democrats, on a number of the landmark issues and marquee issues that I think
well, it's important to Democrats, but it's also really important to the evangelicals who voted for Donald Trump.
But these are some fundamental concerns and ideological motivation to be a Democrat when it comes to reproductive rights, when it comes to the issue of same-sex marriage and marriage equality, when it comes to collective bargaining. These are all things that lay at the feet of the Supreme Court of the United States, and many of these things are not nearly as negotiable, frankly, as something like gun control, where I think you'll find a lot more pro-gun Democrats than you will find pro-choice Republicans, for example.
Well, I am a pro-choice Republican. Even
You're
though
also from New York.
Yes, but I also believe that life is sacred, and it's not my responsibility. What we need is a constitutional conservative in the Scalia mold, somebody like a Texas Supreme Court Justice Don Willett, who understands what's going on and who can go on the court.
Democrats aren't going to be so happy about that.
Democrats aren't going to be happy no matter who we pick, unless it's somebody so far to the left that they will jump
or we could just get Merrick Garland in there and kind of split the baby. That's definitely not going to help the evangelicals and the folks that came out for Trump, certainly. But, I think Merrick Garland, from both sides, is seen as a credible individual. But now that they have the full control of both chambers and the White House, I don't think we're going to see that.
Yes, we're going to get a constitutional conservative justice who implements the law as it was intended and doesn't legislate from the bench.
As we look forward in terms of the agenda that obviously President Trump will be able to pursue, we have what you think needs to be done on the economy, Capri, what you talked about as well. What social moves can the president make that would be seen as acceptable from the executive branch? Do you roll back all the bathroom bill issues and all the stuff that Eric Holder put out about having to have gender-neutral bathrooms in schools and that kind of thing? Is that a middle ground that Democrats are willing to cede?
I don't think so. You know, I think that, you know, particularly with the issue of the quote-unquote bathroom bills, I don't even know if they, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm speculating at this point, but I believe that, you know, because it's continued to be litigated in court at the state level, I don't necessarily know whether or not they can go in and just change that.
Well, Eric Holder put out the directive about having to have gender-neutral bathrooms in high schools and talking about gender
but that's being litigated, and so I don't know if it can be changed while it's still pending in the courts. I just don't know.
I think that the executive branch can bring it back because we've seen President Obama expand executive power, and I really hope Donald Trump does not, and he actually pulls back the executive overreach that has happened. But is it a hill that the GOP should die on strategically? I think it's not something we should do. We need to focus on the economy as well as going out and beating ISIS and fixing every problem.
I think we would be better served as a nation if we did not become so fixated on a lot of these, you know, wedge social issues and focused on the issues where we can agree when it comes to investment in infrastructure, when it comes to growing the economy, small business growth.
It must be the holiday feelings, but you guys are getting along. This is wonderful. We'll see. You guys need to be in Washington. We'll see if we can get more of that thing. All right, Capri from Ohio rather than Hawaii. Thinking about Hawaii. Evan, it's great to see you guys. Thanks so much. Good to be here. Laura?